Good morning, bonjour. The site of Qurh is recently investigated by the Qurh Conservation Archaeological Project, started in 2022, and its first phase will last until 2025. It receives funding from the Royal Commission for Al-Ula and is carried out by the German Archaeological Institute. The project is headed by Anno Fausleiter and based on three main research components, that is conservation, led by Katharina Kunz, urban archaeology, led by myself, and archaeological excavations, led by Friedrich Weigel. Other specialists are involved in the project, especially Mustafa Ahmed, leading the pottery studies, and Professor Keilhoff, conducting hydrological research. The archaeological site of Qurh, with the modern name Al-Mabiyat, is located in northwestern Saudi Arabia, about 19 kilometers southeast of Al-Ula. It is surrounded by a fence. On the satellite image on the right side, the fence is marked with a brown line. The fence area measures approximately 80 hectares. It encloses the urban areas of Qurh, as well as three mountains labeled Mount 1, 2, and 3. The location of the site coincides with the reconstructed ancient trade routes connecting the southern and northern parts of the Arabian Peninsula. These routes subsequently became important for the pilgrimage from Syria and the Levant to Mecca and Medina. The reconstruction of the ancient routes has been the subject already of various research, and it became clear that in the early to middle Islamic periods, the city of Qurh could be reached by the Syrian pilgrimage route as well as by a branch from the Egyptian route. Most likely, due to this good traffic situation, Qurh became an important caravan and pilgrimage station. The archaeological site of Qurh Al-Mabiyat has already been extensively investigated. Doughty, as well as Josen and Sauvignac, were the first mentioning the site, but without visiting. Peter Parr did a short survey and recognized it as an Umayyad foundation. In 1983, Abdallah Nassif convincingly identified Al-Mabiyat with the historical city of Qurh dating to the early Islamic period. Then in the 1984 and 85 first excavations were carried out by the Department of Antiquities, and from 2004 until 2019, extensive excavations were carried out by the King Saud University under direction of Dr. Al-Aboudi. Historical sources mention that Qurh was one of the major urban settlements in the Hijaz during the early to middle Islamic periods. The geographer Al-Muqaddasi, who lived in the 10th century, even describes that Qurh was the second largest town in the Hijaz after Mecca. The sources also state that Qurh was known for its economic wealth and production, and that the site had been abandoned at the end of the 12th century. The excavations from the 1980s onwards resulted in a rich archaeological record, evidence of contacts to Iraq, Syria, and Egypt. An occupation between the 7th and the 11th century has been suggested with a main occupation between the 9th and the 11th century. The previous excavations also revealed densely built residential areas with streets. The area photo on the right side shows the main excavation area of the King Saud University. Most of the excavated structures are built of mud brick walls. Stones and bricks are only used for specific building elements. Few survey activities have also been carried out, but these were mainly aimed at identifying areas for excavation rather than at systematically mapping surface features. There are 2 published maps, which you can see on the slide. I will now present the results of our ongoing project and will concentrate on the survey results. At this point, however, I would like to briefly refer to the results of the ongoing excavations of Friedrich Weigel. The map on the right side shows the previous excavations by the King Saud University and Department of Antiquities, marked in green, and the new excavations marked in red. The main aims of the DAI excavations are to investigate different functional contexts and the occupation history of Qurh. So far, excavations were carried out at the city wall, a residential building, a funerary context, a pottery kiln, and currently at a mosque. Mustafa Ahmed is investigating the ceramic finds. He already spoke about this yesterday and presented his results on the dating of the excavated structures to the 10th and 11th century. As presented in the research history, not much was known about the urban layout or distribution pattern of the city of Qurh until the beginning of the DAI project. Therefore, one main component of our project deals with urban archaeology and has 3 main aims: to understand the urban layout and environmental setting, to investigate the spatial functional organization, and to get insight into the settlement dynamics through time. The investigations have a multidisciplinary approach, using remote sensing techniques, methods of field surveys with the focus on detailed recording of surface features like humidity marks, ground marks, color marks, or architecture features, structures naturally exposed. The pictures below illustrate the different kinds of surface features. For instance, the picture left shows how mud brick walls can be identified on the surface based on humidity marks. In addition, geophysical prospections were carried out, and finally we started a comparative evaluation of these various survey data. During the field survey, significant objects were found and collected. For example, a small rim fragment of a glass vessel produced in millefiori technique, which is probably imported from Iraq. At this point, I would like to mention that Cassandra Försters will be studying the glass finds of Qurh in her PhD thesis. Several sandstone slabs with Arabic inscriptions were recorded. The slabs most probably served as gravestones, therefore indicating the presence of graves. Noteworthy among the survey finds are the fragments of one large monochrome lustreware bowl, which is decorated with 2 lute players and probably also imported from Iraq. The artwork of this bowl is of exceptional quality. Furthermore, this object is of interest because such depictions of musical entertainment were an essential part of the courtly iconography of the medieval Islamic world. Consequently, the vessel testifies to a form of elite lifestyle in Qurh. And on the right side, I show you the fragment of a glass coin weight with an Arabic inscription on the recto. During the Abbasid and Fatimid periods, coins were commonly weighted for payments rather than counted. Thus, this object refers to the trade and money exchange in Qurh. Based on the terrain features, the course of the city walls, and thus the extent of the urban area of Qurh, here marked in yellow on the right map, can be determined in many areas. It can be stated that the city of Qurh consists of two districts. There's a large urban district of irregular shape measuring about 40 hectares and a very small district of about 1 hectare to the northwest of the former. Both districts are surrounded by perimeter walls and are clearly separated from each other. The Archaeological Survey provided detailed information about the course and construction methods of the city wall. Numerous surface features were found and mapped in detail. They provide information about the position and size of towers, projections, and recesses. In addition, a ditch running parallel to the city wall was recorded. Due to these features, it can be assumed that the city wall of Qurh was a fortification wall. As part of the survey, the ruins of a building located on Mount 1 were investigated, and a first ground plan of the structures was drawn. The plan shows that the building is very small and consists of only a few rooms. The prevailing interpretation as a kala, so a castle or fortress, can therefore not be held. Rather, it can be assumed that it served as an outlook and observation tower. Mount 1 probably also served as a landmark, as its special pyramid shape offers high visibility and recognition. It is obvious that a fire was also lit here to give smoke signals for pilgrims traveling by night to avoid the daytime heat. The photo on the top left illustrates the appearance of Mount 1 from a distance. Surface features also further indicate that two long mud brick walls with buttresses lead up to the tower, on the map numbered with 1 and 2. Hence, there was a connection between the tower and the urban area of Qurh. Consequently, the observation tower was part of the city's fortifications and can be dated to the early Islamic time. Survey activities were also conducted in the vicinity of the site. A previously known water reservoir called Burqa 1, southeast of the site, was investigated. Further, a long stone wall was discovered over a length of 300 meters, which likely continued towards southeast to Burqa 1 and served as protection and deviation wall. A second Burqa was discovered southwest of the site, which is similar in size. It can be assumed that the collected water was used for agriculture or to water animals. The results are of particular interest as the features represent elements of the water management system of the settlement of Qurh. Water is essential for survival, therefore the most important prerequisite for the development of Qurh into an important trade and pilgrimage station was that there was enough water available for everyone. From the written sources, we know that Qurh had numerous water sources. Al-Muqaddasi even gives the information of copious springs of water, but he also mentioned that the water is unwholesome. Given the importance of Qurh as major urban settlement in the Hijaz, the poor water quality does not seem to have had any influence on the development and prosperity of the city. However, it may have been a main cause of its decline in the 12th century. During the spring season 2023, a geophysical survey was carried out by the company Eastern Atlas. The entire city area and parts of its surroundings were prospected, and a total of almost 57 hectares investigated. Due to the irregular terrain, most of the survey was done on foot, pulling the measuring devices by hand. Based on the magnetic data, it was possible for the first time to reconstruct the spatial organization of the city of Qurh. This slide shows an interpretation of all archaeologically relevant anomalies that indicate the extent of building complexes or structures. Inversely, gaps in between are apparent. We assume that linear gaps indicate streets, while others point to the location of unbuilt areas or open spaces. The distribution of the debris led to the development of a structural plan, and it turned out that most of the assumed buildings and debris distributions share a common northwest-southeast alignment. Only in the southern district, here marked with a blue circle, the buildings show a clearly different orientation of north-northwest, south-southeast. The mosque excavated in Trench F5 was recently found in this area and is marked with a red point. An interpretation map of the street network was derived in a further step. Highlighted are several streets that we defined as main streets. This categorization is based on their average width. While most of the streets range from 3 to 5 meters in width, the highlighted streets are up to 9 meters wide and have long linear courses. In my opinion, this design of the streets shows a reference to the city's function. By making the main streets very wide, they offer enough space for the movement of large groups, such as pilgrim groups, as well as space for the transport of products and goods on animals. Also striking are large open spaces marked with cross-hatching in this map. They could coincide with courtyards or public squares. Considering the city's function as an important trade station, it can be suggested that the two large open spaces located next to city gates and marked here with a blue dot were used as open market spaces. By combining the various survey data, clues for city gates could be found at 8 locations. However, it is uncertain whether the gates were operating at the same time. Due to the findings in the previous excavations by King Saud University, we can say that the gate labeled N3 was blocked at a later date and no longer used. Therefore, a certain chronological depth is to be expected. A reconstruction proposal for routes leading to the city gates was derived in a further step. It became clear that the main routes come from the southeast, south, and west. The two water bazaars, Burqa 1 and 2, may have served as signposts or arrival points for travelers and to water animals. It seems likely that the camels from the caravans could be tied or held on the area between Burqa 1 and the city gates. In addition, tents or other facilities may have been set up in this area where pilgrims or travelers could stay overnight as an alternative to accommodation within the city, because in this area, next to Burqa 1, the remains of a musalla structure for prayer was found. And it is marked with mosque on the map. So I'm coming to the end, and with my last slide, I want to summarize how the requirements of a main trade and pilgrimage station affected the urban design and development of the city of Qurh. The slide shows some basic requirements on the left and the findings or characteristics of Qurh on the right side. First, water supply. From the written sources, we know that there were copious springs. In addition, wells and burqas were erected. Second, security or safety. The urban areas of Qurh were protected by fortification walls, city gates, and a watchtower or observation tower on Mount 1. Third, orientation point in the landscape. Mount 1 could have been a landmark, and the watchtower probably also served as a fire signal tower. Fourth, space and structures necessary for the movement of goods or people. Open spaces and marketplaces probably existed next to the city gates. Wide main streets were crossing the city, and flat areas in front of the eastern gates could have been used for tents, camels, or others. And finally, accommodations. It is likely that caravanserais and other accommodations existed near the gates and next to the main roads, but so far this is not proven and is an open question for future research. Thank you for your attention.